Okay, welcome back. We're going to look at how we can make our make a form in PHP that submits some values. So I've added a few things since the last video. I've made sure that I've got a link to a style sheet just to make it look a bit nicer, just to show you what's inside the style sheet. Not a lot, I've just changed the default font. I've tweaked this class called copyright just to make it smaller and add a bit of a margin. And then remember, back on the footer, we added a little bit of text that had copyright Mrs. James. I put that in a div called copyright, and you'll see in a second that it's a bit smaller. So back on home page, which we I think we started doing last video, we've added a little bit of text to say hello world, this is the home page, and then I've included the connector.db PHP file, the header file, and the footer file. So this is going to be kind of our template for any other pages we add to PHP. So if I now just make sure that's saved and go to the main, my main website, we can have a look at home.php, which is using the template, and it's got there, it includes the style, which is changes to the Verdana style text, and it's also reformatted my copyright, which is down the bottom. Good thing about getting my framework set up is that I can then use that again when I'm adding subsequent pages. So the first page I'm going to look at is creating a form, which allows us to submit some data. So I've already started it here, called simpleform.php. Just to talk you through these tags, I've got a form, opening form tag up here and a closing one down there. I've made the method equal to post, which we'll look at in a minute. Essentially, there are two types of methods, and the post method will send the data inside your form almost invisibly. You've got a bit more flexibility rather than the other method, which is called get. So for our form, we've got a little header in there that says fill in your details. We've got some sort of labels, paragraph saying enter your name, enter your location, enter your email, and then three little inputs here for the name, the location, and the email. Notice there's something slightly different about email. I've got a type that's equal to email, and we'll see that in a second. And then this last one here, the type equals submit, is simply a button that allows us to submit it. And then at the top, we'll look at this in a second, but this is basically what happens when you click the button. Now in PHP, you don't have to have the form appearing on the page where you've actually got the programming, the logic to what happens when they've submitted it. However, for this demo, I think it's going to be the easiest way of doing it. So let's just have a look at what that looks like now. So if I go back to the home page, I've called it simpleform.php. And as you can see, it's a pretty vanilla form, but it has got the title, it's got the paragraphs that say the labels for the fields, and it's got the submit button. What I'm going to do before I move on is I'm just going to include the header and the footer just so that you can see exactly what happens when you change it. And for that, I'm just going to steal that bit of PHP out of there and plonk it at the top here. You could argue that I could put this all into one big PHP section, which I will do there, but you don't have to. And then down in the, I'm going to add the footer to the bottom. Okay, so hopefully you'll see that it adds a bit of, oops, where am I? It'll add some consistency to my pages. Right. I'll save that and let's just preview what the simple form looks like now. And you can see it's got my global title, which says Learning PHP. It's changed the font and it's put Mrs. James at the bottom with copyright. Anyway, let's see what this does. So if I enter my name, always Bob, enter my location, Bath, enter my email, rubbish in there. When I click submit, notice this is quite a relatively new function that most browsers allow you to do, which is sort of a little bit of client-side processing. And did you see the message? It says, please include an @ sign. So if I put @ in there and bibble bibble, that's still not a valid email address, but I can get away with it. When I press submit, it posts it. And then at the moment, I've just got a message saying you click the submit button. If we have a look at the code, you can see up here, I've got an if statement that says if the request method is equal to post, which means someone has clicked the submit button, I'm just echoing you click the submit button. So far, so uninteresting. If we actually want to see what has been posted, we need to use this special array called post. And what that does is it allows us to view any of the variables that were sent through. Now we use the name attribute inside those square brackets to display it. So my first attribute was username. I'm going to stick some line breaks in between it just so that you can see what it's doing. So let's just copy and paste that. So I've got 3 of those fields, so I'll paste that twice more. And the other one was called location, I believe, and the other one was called email. This is just showing you the raw data that PHP is receiving from the form. Okay, so save that. Here, refresh it. My blank field, it no longer says you click the submit button. I'm going to put some new names in there. Jim from Bristol, and a fake email address. Submit. So now you can see it's actually got hold of what I typed in. So hopefully you can translate that yourself. So you could say if post equals such and such, do something else. What I'd also want to show you is how you can, so say you were looking for a particular input, you could redirect them to another page. So let's try that. Let's say if $post username, so we'll have a secret name, something like if that equals to Bob, so double equals, and say Bob, we're going to do something special. So for this, we're going to do header brackets. I haven't done this in a while, so I might get this wrong. Header location dot location. Where are we going to go? Let's go to the home page. On there. So we're just going to say that we're going to take them to, if they type in Bob, it should, if I've got this right, redirect to the home page. Let's see. So if I reload that again, type in Bob, ignore the location, type in the fake email address again. There we go. Did you see? So I didn't even get the message back. It ran the code that I set it to do, and then it just took me to a home page. So hopefully you can see the power of this, that you can start to redirect users depending on what they type in. Okay, I'm going to leave that on there, and we'll come back to uploading pictures in a second.